so welcome back. We're going to talk about the back office software. Back office software can be accessed in two ways. I can access it from the POS, from going to manager functions to system setup. I can also access it from the system setup icon on the back office itself. I have setup open here already. So this is the back office software. There are things in here that stores don't have access to, and anytime they sign in, it will tell them if they don't have access to something. For the most part, stores are coming to the back office software for two reasons: to deal with employees and to deal with inventory. So let's first start off with employees. So I selected the employee button on the left-hand side, and it's going to open up a list of all the employees I have set up in the store. Now, by using the system, some stores do want to capture all their information, some stores don't. For us, we need 4 specific fields on this tab, and there's 5 tabs we're going to deal with. So let's just start with the setup tab first off. We need to know their first name, we need to know their last name, and we need to know their display name. We also need to know a PIN number for them to use in the system to use the system. These are the 4 things that we must have in the system for them to use the POS. It will not let you save unless you've entered in these 4 tabs. Putting all the other information down here is a procedure, whether it's a corporate store it must have or a franchise store, they keep it as optional. Going into the position tab, this is where we need to assign a position for the job position. Nobody should be a cashier. The fact that this employee is set up as a cashier actually is incorrect. It should actually be set up as clock in out only. The only people that should be set up as cashiers, unless the location is having everyone set up as cashiers, and as far as I'm aware, there's only 3 stores in the chain that do this, the cashiers are the day cash code and the night cash code. So there's our night cash code here, and there's our day cash code up there. The reason why we do this is we don't want any other employee able to do a transaction in the system. We want it to come up and say, you're not authorized, you must use the day cash code or the night cash code. If this person signed in, leaving it the way it was as a cashier, they could theoretically ring in sales under their own number, and it wouldn't be known until the end of day when the system prompted and said, hey, Addis needs a cash out. Does that make sense to everybody on how we really only want to keep the day cash as a cashier and the night cash as a cashier? So going back to Addis, we should have it set up like this. She's a clock in out only employee. That's all she can do. Later on in life, she gets promoted. I bring this clock in only back, and I bring supervisor over. She's now a shift supervisor. Her same employee setup all of a sudden now can do shift supervisor security. Later on in life, she gets promoted again. She is now a manager. She now has more access. There should only be one job position here for Mary Brown's. Mary Brown's is not set up where they have multiple job positions. I come into work and this is what I do. It's not like we're working in a restaurant and one day I'm a server and the next day I'm a manager and the next day I'm a cook. At Mary Brown's, we're just one job position per employee. We don't need to worry about server groups or security. This is dictated by their job position. And the last thing I'm going to look after is their payroll, which is their pay rate. Now, corporate stores, yes, have additional policies, but for a franchisee store, this stuff, we don't recommend putting it in here, only because it is then seen by anyone who has access to the system. Now, I know corporately it's different. You're using this for ADP, and that's fine. But for franchisee stores, I would not recommend putting social insurance numbers, bank account numbers, and stuff like that in the system at all. I simply hit save. This now saves the changes I've made to the system. If I want to add a new employee, these icons here are for add and copy. So the first one here would blank out everything. So I have a completely new employee. It doesn't know about any information. Everything is blank. I'm simply going to go through the steps and enter in what I need to enter in. I go John, last name is Doe, and John D for the display name. If I want to put in the information, I can. I go into positions. This person's a clock in out only position. I go to payroll, and this person makes $10.50 an hour, and I hit save. John Doe will now show up on my list in a minute here. Just spare me 1 second. Give them a position, give them a rate of pay. I hit save. John Doe is still not showing up on my list. Let's try this one more time. There it is, John Doe, third time's a charm. So John Doe is now on my list. He's now an employee in the system. Anytime I want to add a bunch of employees, or maybe I want to copy everything else. I have a new employee that got hired. They're still a clock it out only. They still get paid $10.50 an hour, and I just want to enter in the new employee. I don't have to go new. I can actually hit copy. So I take the record I want to copy. I hit the copy icon. It will blank out my setup tab, but you'll notice all the other tabs have been copied over with the same job position and the same rate of pay. This is very useful for new stores that open up. It will save them a lot of time when they're programming their employees for the first time, because everyone's a clock and out only employee and everyone makes the same rate of pay. So I just simply go in through the setup tab. We can enter in their code. For the code, for the most part, we're using the last 4 digits of their phone number. We'll put in Sally Sue into the system, and I simply hit copy, and I can simply type it in, and Sally Sue will be on my list. Now, somebody wants to change their code. So John Doe becomes a supervisor now. We don't want to use the last 4 digits of their phone number. We want them to pick their own code. We simply select a field and we type in whatever number we want to type in for them, and now their code has been changed. Same thing applies as if we're using swipe cards. Now, there's no card reader in the office, so if we are using swipe cards, we can have the employee pre-programmed in the office or program them on the POS terminal. But we open this on the POS terminal where we have a card reader. We put our cursor in the field, and we would swipe a card, and that card number would transmit into the card number field, and we can hit save, and now this employee has a swipe card. If they want to change their code or change their card, it's the same method. I would highlight the swipe card field, I'd swipe a new card, I would hit save, and now that's the new card number that would be entered in. Again, if I want to change the person's rate of pay, I simply come in here, I give them a raise, they're now making $12 an hour. Any questions on employee setup?
Hi, Jared. It's Darren here.
Hey, Darren.
I do have a quick question. In Torbay, this past week, we were trying to delete some employees that no longer work for the company.
Good question. Good question. So we actually, in the system, can't delete anything from the system. We must always keep it in the database. However, what we actually want to do is make them inactive and hide them from the system. So that's what this checkbox is for. So by default, every time I come into the system, it's always going to only show me my active records. But if I select this John Doe and make him active and save it, and then I refresh my system or pretend I just signed in the next time, you'll notice John Doe's no longer on my list. But I can't delete it because I still need that historical information when I run a report or anything like that. But let's pretend now 6 months from now, John Doe comes back and works from us. I don't really want to create John again and have 2 John Does in the system. So when I come down to view, I'm actually able to see, and you can see how it's selected on active records. I want to see both inactive and active records. And it will load up both, and it's going to take a second because it's going to go through everything in my system here. And I can see John Doe, there he is, back on my list. And all I'm going to do is make him active again and save, and now he's back working for me. I never had to recreate him or delete him.
That's great.
Perfect. Good question. Any other questions on employees? No? Okay. One very important note I want to make mention on employees is every time you make a change in this module of the software, which is our system setup, this is not loading up into the POS until you tell it to or until certain functions are done on the POS. So in order to tell it on how to load up in the POS, I simply need to go into the POS software. Can whoever there put us on mute for the background noise? Thank you very much. Wonderful. So we're simply going to go to the POS software, and if you notice here, I'll go back in here. and I want to take a look at this employee code. What did we make John Doe? John Doe 8562. So if I go in here and I try to use 8562 here right now, 8562, it's going to actually say the employee is not found. This is because I haven't loaded what I've changed into the POS. Yes, when I restart the POS or when I do certain functions, it will trigger this automatically. But if I want it right away, I'm simply going to sign into the system, and I'm going to go to Manager Functions and reload the setup data. And I should do this on each station. And what this is going to do is take any changes that were done into the back office software and bring them into the front software. So we'll try this now. We'll go with 8562. John Doe's now in the system. So that's a common issue sometimes with new stores that say, hey, I programmed this person in or I changed their number. Why isn't it working? It's just because they need to either restart their system or simply go to Manager Functions and reload the setup data. Okay?